So our last slot today is it's a real labour of love. I mean, we've absolutely, I said at the beginning of our event today, we've absolutely loved being the facilitators of these real world learning, of this real world learning journey, really, for all of our schools, and facilitating that sharing of schools across the globe. It's been great, and we will continue this community of schools. But what we have done is we've asked Mark Anderson to join us and to look at some of those stories that our schools have been sharing, and to help us recognise how that has really panned out. So, as I said, for the last 10 months now, we're on our 4th real world learning series, and we will have another one in June. And our event in June will be really looking at sort of next year and the workload and balancing that out. But until then, we're just having a little problem with Mark joining the session. So Mark's going to take a little bit longer than we expected. But what I wanted to say, it's been absolutely lovely to be able to be the facilitator of sharing these stories. So our team, the customer success team of most of who you've had shout outs today, but they've been collating some of those anecdotes and stories and ideas that you've been sharing. They've been put on our website, and they've been shared with Mark as a completely independent kind of judge. It's not so much a competition, it's more about recognition. And he's here. Did I manage to pad long enough? I didn't quite get onto the dad jokes.
Hey, yeah, not today, Lucy. It makes a nice change, doesn't it? I've got one for you though, and it's cheese related again. What cheese do you use to mask a horse? And it's not a ladyboy related.
I know this one.
You know this one. Go for it. Go.
It's mascarpone.
Very good. But unfortunately, Steve beat you in the chat. So Steve as well. Well done, Steve. Thank you.
Mark, hopefully I've probably stolen a lot of your thunder by waffling until you join. So I'm going to disappear straight away and hand over to you.
Hopefully you can see my screen, which I know you can because I can see my own screen. I'm just going to jump across into my presentation here, and hopefully this will be full screen for you to see it. What a fantastic group of sessions today, from Mick right at the outset, talking complete and utter sense as always. Let's hope that governments around the world heed the words of Mick in keeping things sensible and keeping things on track and where they need to be in terms of putting young people at the front of our thinking with all that we do. It's been great as well to hear from all of the schools today sharing their real world stories. As Sophie alluded to earlier, it's just been a brilliant series of events. Hearing people come together, and we've heard the words again. I often hear when I attend a frog event about the frog family. And lovely to see the work of Paul Conkey being then embedded in the work and what have you of George Bly and the team at GREENSHAW, and then that knocking on and being able to be available to other schools around the world to support them with learning and teaching. Just a real privilege to be involved with the Frog family. I'm not going to spend a long time introducing myself. The session today, to wrap up, I'm going to talk a little bit about my observations of real world learning, but I wanted to, I know I've got some bits about me, but I'm just going to go through those things there really quickly, which basically say I've done a few things, and I've got a bit of an idea about the things that I'm talking about. I don't want to spend labour any time on there because I know your time is precious. But I do want to jump in and think about things how they have been. Who hasn't seen or heard one of these things in the last 12 months? Bitmoji classrooms, memojis being used. These have been really blowing up across the world as places and spaces for children to come in and join you in your lessons in so many different ways. There's been new words come into our vernacular, into our everyday speak, in a catchphrase world. Say what you can see. Of course, if I can beat Steve in the chat, because I can't see the chat anymore, but yeah, Zoom bombing became an actual term. These things have been happening around the world and impacting on all of us. But what's been lovely, again, hearing from Elizabeth a moment ago, Lizzie, about things at Frederick Gough, you know, moving from Rosenshines to online learning and you know, focusing on those things. A large part of the work I do sees me supporting teachers with confidence and competence, and it's just been fantastic for me to see how far the education profession has moved forwards in the last 12 months to be able to be far more confident and competent at using these systems. And it was a great question that was asked in the panel earlier about, you know, what would you keep moving forwards? And there are so many great things. One of the things that I often hear about, as we've heard in the discussions today, is about verbal feedback, something I'm really passionate about. But also things like virtual parents' evenings. No more need to fill the car park up of an evening with all your parents coming along to try and have their meeting, which inevitably doesn't happen on time. And there's so many great strides forwards that have been made with the use of technology to support teaching and learning during the last 12 months. And it was great to hear Andrea earlier sharing about how they were using their platform to track and keep on top of all those things there at St. George's in Madrid. It was great to hear from Ellesmere College about how they were able to support learners around the world in so many different ways through the use of technology. I really, one thing that really resonated with the presentation from Ellesmere earlier, two things here really about teachers don't need to be tech savvy to teach tech savvy. That's absolutely right. It's about knowing that those things which you can put into your teaching and learning toolkit to make teaching and learning work under those circumstances. And I love the glass half full approach quote at the end about learning or trying to treat obstacles as stepping stones to move yourself forwards. I think that's a lovely way to think about these things rather than being a brick wall in front of you, just actual stones to step along and move along that journey. So I absolutely love that message earlier from Vicky at Ellesmere College. It was great to hear from Joe at Davison as well. Actually, you know, so much technology use can be gimmicky. It's got a real propensity for it, but using technology in ways that are really impactful and purposeful, tying those things into key performance indicators and having those metacognitive conversations with learners so they are aware of where they need to get to and then have those strategies to help them get to where they need to get to. It's so important. And it was lovely to hear from Jo talking about that at Davison and also linking that into her experience in the geography department as a geographer. There's so many great stories we've seen today. The one from George earlier was very popular, looking at how they've collapsed things there. And I remember from the FROG conference back last year, Nick, the head teacher at the school, talking about how they sort of moved around the school day. But the key point with all the things at the GREENSHAW was about keeping things really, and George talked about it as well, with the support that was given to vulnerable students or students who've got additional needs. But it was, you know, really making one thing that Nick was really clear on in his presentation back at the FROG conference last year was about how you need to be mindful of where students are at and rearranging the school day to make learning still continue, progress still happen, but most importantly, making sure that students are safe, healthy, happy, well, and able to access the activities at school. It's just fantastic to see those things. And if you haven't had a chance to go to GREENSHAW and talk to George and the team, I don't want to speak for him, but I was certainly very welcomed there when I visited the school a few years ago to see the great things that are happening at GREENSHAW. It was also great to hear again from Lizzie a second ago about how things have moved forward in such a short space of time as well, and the ways in which they approach that, moving from things in lockdown 1 through to lockdown 2. And the high levels of engagement that Lizzie shared in that session before, again, a massive reflection of the success of their implementation at the school and the way in which they're approaching those things. And to do that do that sort of thing with 1,300 plus students is no mean feat. I wouldn't want to be in that position myself. And again, it is really tough to do these sort of things. So hats off and kudos to all of the presenters today, all of the schools involved. And it really is a FROG family. So many ideas coming together. One of the hallmarks of every event I've ever been involved in with Frog has been the live chat and people being really open and willing to share ideas, share resources. And there's another thing that I really love about Frog with the Frog Academy is that the ability to be able to sort of tap into those things that have been developed for one or maybe two or schools or a MAT, but then can be applied directly into your school as well. It's been great to hear as well, people saying great things about the work of Graham and others on the team in supporting you with your work in your schools as well. Yeah, 94% engagement. There's the stat there from Lizzie before. Absolutely brilliant to see that level of engagement in online learning. Could you say you get 94% engagement with all student, or with 94% of your student population when they're in classrooms? If the pandemic wasn't there, I'd argue that probably wouldn't be the case. So fantastic to see that. And I love the sanity group as well that was shared by Lizzie in that session there. Because I sped through my little bit at the beginning, I didn't have a chance to talk about 2 weekly shows that I do on YouTube. On a Monday evening, I do a show which has got a United Arab Emirates focus. I do quite a lot of work in the Middle East. And so I do a show on a Monday called Learn Live UAE. And I do a show on a Thursday with a UK focus called UK Edu Stories. And what I'd like to share now, a few other stories of people who've really and done some amazing things during the course of the pandemic. And so the first is a teacher called Michelle Grant. You can see her Twitter handle maybe in the screen there. A year 4 primary teacher who had her NQT year during the lockdown. And as Vicky was saying about the RQT teacher in her school who had found some great tech and then shared it to all colleagues and things. Michelle spoke really brilliantly about the amazing work and the approaches she was taking in her school. Everyone really was thrown in at the deep end. It was lovely to hear from Michelle. And so UK Edu Stories is a show that I do with a former presenter on the panel and in the presentation in the Frog conference last year as well. And she and I were really overwhelmed and blown away by not only the amazing bookcase behind Michelle, but her approaches to making sure that learning continues, but keeping it all around conversations, the children, making sure there was an opportunity for everyone to sort of stay connected. And if there's one word that has shone through every presentation today, it's been that word relationship. And relationships are so important, and what shone through for every conversation today from every school that's presented has been how each school has worked really hard to not just sustain but maintain those great relationships that ensure that learning happens. And we know that that's important. We know from the research of people like John Hattie and his visible learning work, and from the Education Endowment Foundation and the things that they curate and share, relationships are absolutely key to ensuring the success of the work you do in schools. Bookie herself spoke recently about this in more detail in the presentation she did at the Future of EdTech conference back on February the 11th. And in her presentation here, she shared about, again, the importance of relationships, maintaining communication, and working really closely with families to ensure that the learning that was being delivered and shared and to the students that they serve in their community, in their alternative provision school, sort of still carried on and was sustained and maintained. And it's just such a difficult thing to try and do. But again, it goes back to this idea of relationships. And here's someone else who presented on the show, Harmeet Sahota, again talking really clearly about how they have these really strong relationships with teachers. Not just important to have a strong relationships with your students, but with your teachers. And we heard that again through lots of the presentations today about how you work with your staff. Lizzie said about recording the activities you do for well-being alongside the things you do for teaching and learning. And these were some great ideas shared by Harmeet in his presentation, talking about how he's doing things at his schools in and around Birmingham. Taking things more worldwide. Another great hallmark of learning and sharing and the education space in the last year has been the sharing that's been going on, and we've seen that in the chat again today, just around George's and Paul Conkey's work there that George was sharing before. This is an infographic shared by Ollie Lewis. He's a senior leader at a school, British International School in Abu Dhabi. and schools sort of coming together and teachers coming together and sharing the what works approaches, so that schools are able to move forward. We're able to move forwards and focus in on those things which really matter, B, really important, but C, most importantly, actually work. And so there's lots of these stories around the world. Here's Tim Evans sharing again at the Global EdTech Future of EdTech events a few weeks ago, talking about how they did things in Hong Kong. But again, you can see the statistics here about sort of access to infrastructure and technology that schools have in Hong Kong. 90% 5G coverage, second fastest internet in the world, second most sold mobile devices, 8th most technologically advanced country in the world. All of these things. It would be nice if we had all those things everywhere around the world, but obviously we haven't. But the key point of bringing Tim's information up here on stage again isn't the fact that, wow, aren't they lucky? As Tim was alluding to throughout his presentation, and you can watch this back on the Global EdTech YouTube channel if you want to. But the key messages from Tim's thing wasn't so much about the technology. Again, it was about the people. And that's something which has shone massively through all the conversations again today. It's about working with families, working with colleagues, working with all your key stakeholders to make it so that these that the teaching and learning can still continue, because people are people. I'm not trying to start singing Depeche Mode songs at you, for those of you that are old enough to remember Depeche Mode. But it is the human element which makes these things work. Often when there's an issue with technology, it isn't the actual technology. There's a phrase that I share. Sometimes it's more often the problem lies somewhere between the chair and the laptop. And whatever we can do to support our colleagues in their use of technology to make sure that learning continues is always for the better. So we've heard we talk about Nick. This is Nick House, who's the executive head teacher at GREENSHAW Academy, where he shared back at the Frog event back in the summer about how they work their school day. And if you can see closely there's information here about that really works to support continuity and consistency and things within your family. So 8:30, wake up, make your bed. That's right, every student, make your bed, shower, get dressed, eat breakfast, so forth and so on. And it's been great to see these sort of really wholesome approaches to rounded support for families in communities around the world. We saw Nick again sharing with the fantastic Kate Wragg with Sophie on a panel discussion back in that event in the summer as well. Key things to remember really with all of this: teachers are amazing. The openness, the willingness to share, the collegiality, the shoulders to cry on, all these things that we see being shared by teachers on Edu Twitter, on social media, in Facebook groups, in the Frog forums, it's a real hallmark of how great a profession teaching really is. Teachers are the most valuable resource in the world. I heard Tim Evans say in his presentation, the one I mentioned before from him in Hong Kong, we are, as a profession, we're values driven, responsive, we're dedicated, we're supportive, we're collegiate. And it goes back again to that key message about relationships being absolutely key. So those are some real world learning stories. And I had the sort of unenviable, I guess, talk about Frog passing the buck, but I've had the unenviable task of going through the various nominees for the Real World Learning Awards in the past few weeks. And it's been really tough, actually, because I don't want to sort of pit one school against another and all those different things. But what I have done is look really carefully at the stories from schools, and stories are what help drive us forward as a race, as a species. And help move us forwards, and we learn from each other. We learn from these stories, and so it's been the stories which have really shone through to me, that I've sort of tied through into the different winners that I've sort of picked from the various nominees for each of the different sections in these Frog 2021 Real World Learning Awards. And so I haven't got a drum kit here. I could do a bit of that, but I'm not going to deafen your ears with any tapping on my machine or anything. I'm going to get cracking on and share with you who the various winners are for these different categories in the FROGG 2021 Real World Learning Awards. So the first award is one where we're looking at great examples of online learning. We had some fantastic nominees for this particular award, and it gives me really a huge pleasure to award this Real World Learning Award to GREENSHAW High School. So congratulations to Nick and to George and the team at GREENSHAW. You are a team who not only lead by example, but there are lots of schools I come across, or teachers I come across, who can really talk a good talk, but you don't sometimes get to see that walking the walk. But every which way, with everything I've seen and heard and engaged with in relation to GREENSHAW, has always been absolutely fantastic. And so it gives me real pleasure to announce that GREENSHAW High School is the winner of the Great Example of Online Learning today at this event. So congratulations to everyone there. Thank you very much indeed. And no hobnobs were exchanged in the awarding of this award. In fact, I feel bad now for asking for commission in the chat before. Now, that was something completely different, not related to this in any way, shape or form. The next award goes to a school which has got a great creative example. And so with this award, there are loads of ways in which schools have used technology in really, really creative ways. But the award today for this one, Real World Learning Award, I chose to go to GOSFORTH Academy. So congratulations. What I really loved about this, Adrian Tate, he works so hard and does so much to support all the teachers and students in the community. And the example that was given to me from the team at GOSFORTH was the wellbeing resource and site and activities and everything that was put together by Adrian. And I was just blown away, really, because well-being is so important. Being mindful of where all of your students and colleagues are at is so important. I know it's high on the agenda for all schools, but it really shone through the work that Adrian had done on this. So it gives me great pleasure to say congratulations to GOSFORTH Academy for winning the Great Creative Example Award here at the Real World Learning Awards today. Well done to you, Adrian and the team at GOSFORTH. Moving forwards, we've got the Great Engagement with Remote Learners Award. And with this one, it's difficult. How do you track engagement? How do you know learning's happening? How do you know all these different things? Well, I mentioned earlier in this presentation about how technology can have a propensity to be gimmicky sometimes, but you can also use technology for great reasons to track and inspire and give actual real information to your learners. Data is information without context. And when you have that context, it helps give you, as an educator, wisdom to best support your learners. No longer do we have this sort of sage on the stage, and certainly while we've been teaching remotely, you haven't been able to be a sage on a stage at all, albeit you might have been on a virtual stage a few times. So with this in mind, it's really important that learners are, and we know this again from research. I mentioned the importance of students being able to know how to learn through metacognitive strategies earlier in this presentation. And so giving students that information and that wisdom to enable them to move things forwards is super important. And with that in mind, the winner for the Great Engagement with Remote Learners Award goes to Davison High School for Girls. Congratulations to Joe and the team. I really liked how you were using the KPIs, the key performance indicators, as a means of helping have those conversations about learning. And we saw that in your presentation today. So congratulations to you for winning that award, and very well deserved. And congratulations to yourself and all the team at Davison High. Congratulations. The next award goes to a school which gives a great example of sharing. And actually, the event today has proven and sort of reinforced my choice for this particular award. It has nothing to do with geography, and for those of you who know me and know where I live, may already have a feel for where this award might be going. But we heard in conversations earlier, and Adrian Tate from GOSFORTH certainly picked up on this when George was presenting and was saying that he'd used the work of somebody else with the flashcards to help him develop the system he has there. And of course, with that then, many of you will now know that the award here goes to Paul Conkey and the team at BACKWELL School, just up the road from me here in North Somerset. The impact of the sharing from the team at BACKWELL, there are lots of schools that have benefited from the work they've done with Frog to then impact on what happens in schools, not just in London, in Sutton, at GREENSHAW, but all around the world. And so it's for me, it was a real no-brainer to choose BACKWELL School as the winners of the Great Examples of Sharing Award here in the Real World Learning Awards for Frog here in 2021. So congratulations to Conkey and the team there. Well done indeed. The final award was a particularly difficult one, actually, because every school has changed in the last 12 months. Who has changed the most? It was quite a difficult one to sort of get my head around and think about who it was and where it was and so forth and so on. But this award I've given to a school which hadn't even been actually open for any sort of real length of time at all. This is a school that had to massively pivot from where they were. And yes, every school has had to pivot because we've had to close our schools down, our school sites down, but still maintain learning and all these different things. But with this school, I'd say that they hadn't been open very long and had to massively pivot from where they were at the start of their journey to where they had to get to then to support everyone still carrying on in school. And so with all of that in mind, I chose the winner for the most changed school of the last 12 months to be Brighton College, Singapore. I'd say they were a new school starting out, and as you'll have heard from the team there, if you attended the Frog event back in the summer, you'll have heard about how pivotal, and using the same pivot word, but how important Frog was to the school in order for maintaining and sustaining learning, making sure that students still had all the best that they wanted and needed in terms of their learning, progress, support, teaching, learning, all those different things. So congratulations to Brighton College, Singapore for winning the Most Changed School Real World Learning Award here at this session today with Frog Education. Now, you'd think that was the end of the awards if you were looking at the brochure, but there is one more special award that's being given out today. This person's name, this is not a school, this is a person. This person has been mentioned numerous times throughout the course of the day today. They haven't presented today, although I've seen this person present many, many times. One of the things which really struck me about this person, beyond, I mean, they do amazing work, and there's so many students in their schools that they support. But the thing which really struck home, and always struck home with me, with this particular person, has been their passion and dedication for equity, equality, accessibility, all these things that are so important to make sure that every student gets the same opportunities in life and gets the same access to technology, gets the same access to the resources, gets the same access to high quality teaching and learning. And I know that this person puts the learners at the front of every thought that she has in relation to, and I've given the gender away now, haven't I? With that in mind, then, I really wanted to take a moment to celebrate the work of Kate RWRAGG. Well done to Kate for winning the Learning Technologies Award today here at the Real World Learning Awards with Frog. It's given me massive pleasure to be able to share not just this award, but all of the other winners today as well. And it'll sound a bit cheesy, I know, but actually, the real winners in all of these things have been the children in our classrooms, the children in our communities. When I mean, Sophie talked about as a parent herself, you know, she felt buoyed that there are educators such as those sharing today that are in the profession and being able to support her children. I'm exactly the same. And, you know, I having taught in the classroom and led in schools for more than 20 years, I know that not every school, not every teacher has these same approaches. The majority do, but not everyone does. And so it's been great to see and hear from so many amazing educators and leaders in the session today and in all the other sessions I've attended Frog events over the years as well. It really does go back to that idea of the Frog family and everyone being together. And with that in mind, I wanted to just give my own sort of personal little sort of ICT Evangelist Real World Learning Award to someone else, because as the person sort of wrapping all these things up, Lucy talked before about the Frog family. Without that Frog family, lots of these things wouldn't have happened. Frog, like many companies, have had their hardships in the last 12 months. When you're working as a company, it's different to working as a school, but I know that all the team at Frog have worked so hard through all sorts of things, from furloughing staff to all these different things, but still making sure that you in your schools are superbly well supported. And so just to wrap up at the end of this session, I really did want to say a massive thank you to all of the team at Frog. On behalf of myself, as an outsider looking in, I see how hard Lucy, Chris, Graham, Amber, you know, Graham, the whole team work so hard at making sure that everything works for you. And I know how passionately they care, led by Lucy and supported by the whole team sort of wrapping around it. I know how important it is that things work really well for you. And you don't see that in every educational technology company. What Frog have is really quite special, and so that's why it always gives me great pleasure and pride to get the opportunity to continue to work with them and share in the way that I do. So I hope you found that session useful, some of those stories and things to take away, a few ideas maybe. And congratulations to our various winners. I'm sure the team at Frog will be in touch with you about your swag and your award badges and all the rest of it. But for me, Mark Anderson, this is me sort of finishing off, saying thank you very much for the opportunity to come and share with you today. And I look forward to catching up with you at some point again in the future. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much for those lovely, kind words that you said about us as well.
Right,
really appreciate it. And the Frog, obviously the Frog Real World Learning Awards won't go away. They might be slightly under a different branding, no matter what the future looks like, but it's all about sharing. So whatever happens, we will still be recognising those schools that, and all of the schools that took part, not just the winners. It's again about that community and family of sharing. So thank you very much for doing that for us. We really appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure, Lucy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.